preaching to the choir as the folks who are aware that we're living in a fascist America right now. It's not coming as a surprise. And maybe the people who need to be hearing this aren't the ones who are here right now. I never met my grandfather. He passed away about 11 years before I was born. He was a Holocaust survivor. He lost his older brothers and his parents in Poland. I never met him, but I hear about the stories. And I also have heard about epigenetics, and that's how we inherit the trauma of our ancestors. And that's something that's not really talked about too much. We're still living with the trauma of what those who came before went through, and then we're also still seeing that every day here. One thing about fascism and the Holocaust, we talk about these things, that things didn't just happen overnight. Things become normalized and accepted, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. A few laws get passed. People don't think much of it at the time, they accept it, and then more laws get passed. I'm 36, I've seen enough, even in these 36 years, of things that have changed. Even in going to the airports, for instance, being able to walk people to the gates, to see them at the planes, to see all the NSA security, these additional features that have been added to take away our civil liberties throughout the years. And now we're seeing even more of that. I come from a more, just an emotional, really emotional place. And I think of how often we're targeted based on our identities, based on the bodies we're born into, and how they use it against us to divide us. There's an argument that somehow free speech is equal to hate speech. And again, that's been normalized. And I think there's a big problem. There definitely is a problem with certain law enforcement. There's definitely a problem with white nationalists. And there's also a problem with moderates, because they're the ones who are also normalizing everything that's happening. There's a lot of gaslighting that's happening. If people want to defend themselves against people who are attacking us and have been attacking us, and they say, oh, they have a right to speak, they have a right to recruit, they have a right to speak hatred, I disagree with that. Good. And if there are more people in positions of power who can maybe listen to that and understand that, then I might have actually some faith in the system, and right now I have none. I think it's up to the people, and looking at history, it has been the people who have had to defend themselves and to work outside the system to make a change. And I don't know if anyone in this building can hear, I would question folks who are following orders. What does that mean? And how would you feel if you had family members taken away from you, as is happening right now in this country? People who have done nothing wrong. We're seeing children ripped away from their parents. It's not just a job. People are ruining other people's lives, and it's cruel, and it's humane, and people have the power to stop it. Yeah. You can say, no, I will not do this. Yeah. You don't have to do your job. Right. You can walk away. You can be on the right side of history. You can question authority, question your bosses, question what you're being told. You can walk away right now and be on the right side of history. And hope people who are listening to this and have the ability to do so will do just that. Thank you.
All right. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Drive out the Trump-Pence regime. We stand with immigrants, we stand with refugees, we stand with the Muslim community, we stand with all the communities, the African American community, all the communities that are under attack and are increasingly under attack by this regime. And we stand in solidarity and declare that together we will drive out this regime. We will prevent it from carrying out the horrors that we've seen history carry out on other people. And I've been reminded of the fact as well that in addition to the crimes that we see every day being committed against our brothers and sisters, our immigrant brothers and sisters, our African American brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters, here in this country also supports fascists all over the world.
That's right.
Fascist governments come here, and we saw that with Trump and Assisi from Egypt. The murdering, bloodthirsty regime in Egypt, and he sat down and he had a good talk with them. And they found common ground. And this regime finds common ground with the most reactionary, the most racist regimes in this world. I'm going to call up Heriberto to read a statement from an immigrant rights activist, and then we'll have one more Holocaust family speak.
So this is a statement from Noelia Corso. It says, I'm the daughter of Guatemalan immigrants, and I will speak on behalf of my community. ICE must understand the damage that is being done to American families in this country. North American families, Central American families, South American families are all part of the Americas and are interconnected. The fear that has been instilled in families without documentation is unjust and immoral. Mixed families with children are already traumatized by the rejection of their humanity. This is reflected in the schoolwork of the children, in the anxiety passed on by the parents, and even the dreams that are supposed to bring them peace. ICE must understand that just following orders is not an excuse to go into communities and kidnap people who contribute to their families and our society as a whole. We stand against mass deportations in efforts to not repeat the lessons that history has taught us.
Okay, I'm going to read my own statement here. I come from a Holocaust family. My father, Fred, didn't leave Germany until 1938. Remember that Hitler came to power in 1933. He barely made it out. Even though he grew up in Munich and watched the Nazis rise before his eyes, he didn't believe that things could get so bad. His friends and school classmates and sports club friends were all non-Jews. They were not anti-Semitic, nor were most Germans. He insisted on that repeatedly. But people failed to act decisively when they still could. Then the Aryan supremacists, the core of the Nazi social base, got the upper hand. Those who opposed Hitler, who had the potential to stop the march to full-out fascism, failed to realize the extent of the danger. Progressive organizations were repressed, especially after the Rackstead fire. That was in March of 1933. And fear and paralysis took hold fairly quickly. But even then, people held illusions because things did not proceed in a straight line. Periods of ugly repression were followed by periods when things seemed to normalize. But then new rounds of repression began. In 1935, a cousin of my father was arrested and charged with the crime, which had only become a crime in 1933, of having sexual relations with a non-Jewish woman. The trial became headline news in Germany. Yet more proof, Germans were told, of the criminal nature of Jews and the danger they represented to the German people. This cousin, whose name was Benno Holzer, was imprisoned and did not survive. In the fall of 1938, a few months after my father left Germany, Jews of Polish origin, some immigrants, some German-born, were expelled from Germany. They were stuck in the frigid weather on the German-Polish border without shelter or food. The son of one of those families, Herschel Grinspan, was in Paris at the time. Angry and distraught, he got a gun and he shot the German consulate. Nazi leaders were in Munich for their annual celebration of the 1923 Beer Hall Putsch when word of the shooting came in. Joseph Goebbels, the Steve Bannon or Jeff Sessions of his day, got on the phone to Nazi leaders across Germany. The Nazi media blared their denunciations of Jewish crime. This was the excuse they were waiting for. The next day, throughout Germany, synagogues burned, Jewish businesses were trashed, hundreds of Jews were killed, 30,000 Jewish men were rounded up and sent to concentration camps, among them my grandfather. He spent several months being abused and terrorized in Dachau. After Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, laws were enacted that destroyed the economic, social, and cultural life of Jews. 3 years later, at a Nazi conference in Wannsee, the systematic extermination of Jews was planned. My grandparents, Benno and Anna, were arrested in April 1942. My grandfather was executed in Berlin, and my grandmother was sent to a concentration camp in Belarus and died suffocated in a truck on the way there. Adolf Eichmann was at Wannsee where the Holocaust was planned, was charged with organizing the transport of Jews to the death camps. This was in the 1960s. He'd proven himself willing to carry out policies in all stages of the persecution of Jews, Gypsies, LGBTQ people, immigrants, and other targeted people. At his trial in 1962, Eichmann declared he just carried out orders. But the Holocaust could not have succeeded without such people. Today, we will bestow the Adolf Eichmann Award and the Joseph Goebbels Award to two functionaries of the Trump regime.
The Joseph Goebbels Deplorable Deathly Excellence Award for demonizing and persecuting so-called undesirables is presented to Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. In recognition of his grim achievements, first and foremost, we commend his recent Goebbelsian comments about the tide of evil boiling up from Mexico. As he wrote, "It is here, on this sliver of land, where we first take our stand against this filth." Wow. For dutifully echoing the Fuhrer's lead in fear-mongering about the drugs, gangs, and crime flooding across the border. For faithfully following his direction so that they could say we were only following orders. Whoa. For making sure every undocumented person feels the raw terror that they can be snatched, imprisoned, and deported at any time, for any reason or no reason at all. As he said, everybody in this country illegally is subject to being deported. For separating families, because a child or a family member enters the United States lawfully doesn't mean that others can enter the country unlawfully. For hiring many more federal immigration judges to speed up the deportation process. For criminalizing helping, transporting, or harboring undocumented immigrants. For slashing the minimal protections against the abusive immigrant detainees. And we could go on and on. And the second deplorable award is the Adolf Eichmann Award for leadership in the field of detention and deportation of undesirables is presented to General John Kelly, Secretary of the U.S. of Homeland Security, in recognition for his achievements, for striking terror into the hearts of Muslims everywhere by enforcing Mein Trump's January 27th Muslim ban, for his tireless effort to begin construction of the border wall by the end of the summer 2017, for not letting the political correctness that for too long has dictated our approach to national security, as he says. Stop him from racial profiling and torture. For his shameless commitment to separating families. As he said, "I would do almost anything to deter the people from Central America." adding 10,000 new ICE agents and 5,000 Border Patrol agents to speed up arrests and deportation. In the category of lifetime achievement, we would recognize the efforts of the former Southern Command to keep the Guantanamo Torture Center open. As he said, there are no innocent men down there. And a special Joseph Mengele appreciation for overseeing the forced feeding of hunger strikers there. I could go on, but Eichmann would be proud.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things here. Most recently, General John Kelly, who has been touted as the moderate in the Trump, a moderating influence in the Trump regime, if you recall, when he was first appointed the head of the Department of Homeland Security. The New York Times, not a radical journal, as far as I know, recently made this comment about a speech that that General Kelly made at the George Washington University. This is what the New York Times said. His apocalyptic talk turns Islamophobia and immigrant scapegoating that turbocharged the Trump campaign into marching orders for the federal law enforcement agents and bureaucrats. In other words, what we're looking at here are functionaries of this regime that are marshaling and rallying and puffing up the agents of a potential disaster in this country. We've gone through years of deportation and demonization of immigrants, detentions. The United States has the largest number of detention centers, the largest number of immigrants of any country in the world held in detention, and now they want to expand that. So here we have a functionary of the government, the head of the Homeland Security, that is rallying the troops to become even more vicious and more bloodthirsty and more, hard-hearted towards the immigrants and other targeted people in this country. The other thing I wanted to say is, talking about Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, who was recently at Nogales on the border with an Arizona. Nogales is both on U.S. side. There's a Nogales, Mexico, and Nogales, Arizona. He was over there in Nogales rallying apparently the ICE troops there to do their job. His remarks were so extreme, and the comments that he made, the suggestions he made about demonizing, not only demonizing, but criminalizing and actually incarcerating people who bring their families over here, or people who transport or house immigrants. They're talking about criminalizing, putting people in jail for transporting or housing immigrants that are here. He's also talking about a felony offense for people who are here without documents. So this is the kind of thing that we're facing here. What I tried to say in terms of the remarks I was making, that in Germany, we can look back on it and think, well, how in the hell could people have put up with that? Or how could people not have known that this was going on? And yet, there were people that didn't realize what was going on, or didn't realize how bad things could be. I think it's really important here on this Holocaust Remembrance Day that we pledge ourselves to do everything in our power to rally the people. And I know there are millions of people in this country that hate this regime, and millions of people are resisting. We were out with this march the other day, 50,000 or so people for science. There's going to be tens of thousands more, hundreds of thousands across the country, maybe millions, to defend the science of climate change. And then on May 1st, which is extremely important, we've got to have millions of people in this country in the streets on a day without immigrants, declaring that we stand with our immigrant brothers and sisters, and we will not allow this regime and this government to persecute them and to do what Sessions and Kelly are talking about doing. Okay. So one more thing, una cosa más. We have these statements, these awards that Troy was reading from, and these are being presented in many places across the country. I don't know how many. Okay. We had an idea of a delegation from here, from this group here, to go into ICE and make a formal request that whoever's in charge up there come down, and we will present these awards to them to be forwarded to those who rightfully deserve them. So,
Yeah. Bruce.
Yeah.
Please tell La Migra we apologize for not being able to stay for lunch.
okay, I'll do that later. All right, is there anybody else before we close out this segment of things who wants to say something? Yeah.
I just wanted to thank the family members of those who lost loved ones in the Holocaust and came to speak. It reminds me of April 14th when students at UC Berkeley held arms together and made it an inconvenience for people to enter the university because in representation of the stolen lives of those murdered by police in this country, and how people love to turn a blind eye, but we need to face reality, and until we do, and until we stand up against that, this is not going to stop. So thank you for your words.
Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, recipients of the Joseph Goebbels and the Adolf Eichmann Award for excellent service to the cause of fascism in this country. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go inside. He's here. Here we are.
I'm gonna check.
Could you tell them that
Thank you.
Okay, so we can't come in. ICE to come out here.
Okay.
An official, the highest official you can.
Okay.
To be willing to come and speak to us, because we have a couple of awards to present to a couple of important officials in the U.S. government.
Okay.
Okay.
You said someone from ICE specifically?
Yeah, or Homeland Security would be good.
Okay.